everyone think he's a nice guy. We're not okay. It's just he doesn't pay attention to me even when I'm... bitch, you haven't. It's not who you're talking to what. We're in and you know this, and you're in there laughing with guys, girls, and you're walking around like nothing's wrong, Michael. There is a problem here.
Angela Deem's blue lights flashing across the quiet Georgia street. Angela Deem's front yard swarmed with police. Neighbors stood at their windows, recording as the woman who once ruled 90 Day Fiancé screamed through the night. Officers tried to calm her, but Angela wasn't hearing anyone. Her words spilled fast, angry, wild. They set me up, TLC sent you, she shouted while pacing barefoot on her porch. The same voice that used to dominate tell-alls was now echoing into the dark, confused and defiant. Inside the house, the scene was chaos. Furniture overturned, glass shattered, cigarette smoke heavy in the air. A single lamp flickering over a pile of clothes and open bags. Police cameras captured every detail as officers tried to make sense of what they were seeing. A small crowd had gathered at the end of the driveway, whispering, filming, and texting friends. Within hours, the clips would hit social media, and by morning the words, "Angela Deem arrested," would explode across the internet. Angela's hands trembled as they cuffed her. Her eyes darted from face to face, searching for someone to believe her story. The defiance turned to panic when the flashing lights reflected off her own reflection in the car window. She kept yelling that she'd been betrayed, that TLC was behind everything. The officers stayed calm, but her world wasn't calm anymore. This was the moment the audience realized the Queen of Chaos had finally lost control of her own show. As the patrol car pulled away, the neighbors kept recording. The woman who once commanded cameras was now surrounded by them for all the wrong reasons. Fans who had once laughed at her meltdowns were suddenly quiet, scrolling through the headlines in disbelief. Was this the end of Angela's empire, or the start of something even darker waiting behind that mugshot? Back when 90 Day Fiancé was untouchable on Sunday nights, Angela Deem was the show's engine. Viewers tuned in not for quiet love stories, but to see what she would explode about next. She'd storm off a tell-all, light a cigarette mid-argument, then come back swinging with a one-liner that had Twitter losing its mind. TLC leaned into it because the chaos sold. Every meltdown was a ratings bump. Every insult was a viral moment. Angela knew it and used it like currency. She'd bragged to producers that no one could replace her. In her mind, she wasn't part of the cast. She was the reason the cameras rolled. Welcome to TLC Drama Live. I'm Sabrina, and this story shows how fast that kind of confidence turns into danger. Hit subscribe if you follow these cast scandals because this one rewrote the playbook. Comment your thoughts below. Was Angela always headed here, or did TLC push her too far? During those peak seasons, fans watched her bulldoze through anyone who challenged her. Michael, the other cast, even hosts, no one was safe from her temper. She became both the villain and the brand. For a while, TLC tolerated it. They built whole spin-offs around her. But inside the network, whispers started. Staff talked about exhaustion. Some producers refused to film alone with her. Others said the line between on-camera and off-camera behavior had disappeared. Angela didn't notice. Or maybe she refused to. To her, the fights were scripted energy, part of the entertainment. What she didn't see was the shift happening upstairs. Advertisers were tightening rules, legal teams were watching every scene, and TLC executives were asking one question they'd never asked before. What happens if the chaos stops being funny? That was the first quiet warning that her empire wasn't as secure as she believed. Inside TLC headquarters, the shift from gossip to paperwork happened quietly. No public fights, no leaked memos, just a slow, steady build of documentation. Producers began logging every outburst, every walk-off, every late arrival. What started as casual notes turned into full reports. HR began collecting statements from crew members who said they no longer felt safe filming with Angela. Editors flagged moments that couldn't air because her behavior crossed company policy. By mid-season, an internal email thread titled AD Follow-Up was circulating among executives. It wasn't dramatic, it was clinical. The kind of tone companies use when they're preparing for something inevitable. Legal drafted confidentiality clauses. Compliance added Angela's name to their risk assessment list. Someone in the production office created a folder with her initials. Every week it grew thicker. Incident summaries, eyewitness accounts, even screenshots from social media where she attacked fans and coworkers. Angela had no idea. On screen she was still laughing, throwing shade, and calling herself the queen. Behind the scenes, the network was tightening its grip. meetings were held about brand protection. Lawyers warned about liability exposure. TLC wasn't planning to punish her yet. They were building a defense for when they eventually had to. The pattern they saw was textbook: escalating anger, refusal to cooperate, paranoia about being edited unfairly. Producers stopped calling her directly and started communicating through intermediaries. The energy around her shifted from awe to caution. Inside one boardroom, a senior executive summed it up in a single line during a quarterly review. "We love the drama, but at some point, the drama starts costing us money." No one disagreed. That was the moment TLC stopped treating Angela like a star and started treating her like a case file waiting for closure. Angela's public face stayed loud, confident, untouchable. Online, she laughed off criticism, posted selfies with filters, and threw shade at anyone who doubted her. But the version of Angela that lived offline was different. At home, the walls were closing in. Her fights with Michael had gone from playful arguments to cold silence. Every call turned into an interrogation. She'd accuse him of hiding something, then cry minutes later begging him not to leave. His patience ran out long before the audience realized it. He started avoiding her messages, staying quiet during episodes that used to make him famous. Fans thought he was being distant. Insiders said he was exhausted. Angela's daughters noticed it too. They stopped visiting because every conversation turned into a rant about betrayal. Her grandkids, once her pride, became background noise to the chaos. Family calls ended with her slamming the phone or hanging up mid-sentence. At night, she filled the silence with live streams. Sitting under dim light, hair messy, she'd talk to followers like old friends, sometimes calm, sometimes shaking with anger. One minute she'd be laughing about haters, the next she'd accuse TLC of editing her dirty. Comments flooded in, half pity, half disbelief. People couldn't tell if they were watching entertainment or a breakdown. Her neighbors heard shouting through the walls, muffled voices at odd hours, and the sound of glass hitting the floor. Those nights never made it to camera, but they were the real tell-alls, raw, unscripted, and painful to witness. Angela tried to keep the spotlight burning by doubling down. More rants, more accusations, more chaos, but the views were slipping, and the silence after each post got louder. That silence was the first sign that the audience had stopped laughing and started worrying. Angela walked into the Atlanta office wearing sunglasses and confidence. She thought it was a meeting to renegotiate contracts or plan her next spin-off. Staff in the lobby whispered as she passed. By the time she reached the conference room, every executive face around the table was unreadable. A corporate lawyer, a producer she'd known for years, a man from HR with a file thicker than her patience. She sat down and smirked. "So, what's the big emergency?" Ryan Shaw, the new executive producer, spoke first. Calm, polite, practiced. He thanked her for her years with the franchise, praised her impact on the brand, and then shifted tone so sharply she blinked. Effective immediately, TLC was ending their partnership. Her contract was terminated. No future appearances, no spin-offs, no tell-alls. For a second, Angela didn't move. Then her jaw clenched. "You think you can fire me? I am the show." Her voice filled the room. A security guard appeared quietly at the door. Ryan repeated the decision, word for word, like reading a script written by lawyers. She slammed both hands on the table, shouting that everyone in the room would regret this. Chairs scraped back. Someone flinched when she pointed. The guard stepped closer. Angela turned toward him, shaking with anger, then looked back at the producers she once called friends. "You're nothing without me," she hissed. No one responded. Their silence made it worse. She kicked her chair aside and stormed out, her voice echoing down the hallway, throwing accusations of betrayal and conspiracy. Minutes later, security intercepted her near the lobby when she tried to re-enter. Phones were already buzzing with internal messages. "Meeting over, she's out." The network's decision was final. By the time Angela's car pulled out of the parking lot, her name was already removed from the next season's call sheet. As she drove away, she rolled down the window and shouted one last promise into the air. "I'm not going down alone." Days after the firing, the noise stopped. No producers texting, no makeup crew knocking, no cameras lighting her living room. For the first time in years, Angela had silence, and it scared her more than any argument ever had. She tried to fill it with sound. Old episodes replayed on her TV until dawn, her own voice echoing back like a ghost of who she used to be. She'd pause mid-scene, mutter to herself, and light another cigarette. Each night she promised to move on, and each morning she woke up angrier. Sleep became impossible. She'd pace the house barefoot, chain-smoking on the porch, talking to her reflection in the glass door as if it could talk back. Michael's name came up in every rant. Sometimes she cried while mentioning him. Other times she spat his name out like a curse. Her daughters stopped calling after one too many midnight voice notes filled with rambling accusations about TLC, producers, and traitors. Neighbors started noticing. They said the porch light stayed on all night. Sometimes they'd hear shouting at 3 in the morning, doors slamming, or the sound of tires on gravel at strange hours. A few cars started showing up, people no one in the area recognized. They'd park out front, stay for an hour, then disappear into the dark. Angela called it company. Others called it trouble. She'd stand outside arguing with unseen people, insisting she knew what was being said about her. When a neighbor tried to check in, she laughed it off, saying she was planning something big. Food delivery drivers mentioned she paid in crumpled bills, avoided eye contact, and once tipped them with a pack of cigarettes. Every interaction felt like a small flare of chaos waiting to catch fire. The woman who once commanded attention now chased it from the shadows, desperate to feel seen in a world that had already changed the channel. The night of Angela's arrest started quietly. Around 10 p.m., a few neighbors noticed her porch light flickering. They heard muffled shouting coming from inside the house, then the sound of something heavy falling. By 10:45, the shouting turned into full-blown screaming. Two men were seen entering through the side door. Witnesses later said the argument sounded like money or betrayal. At 11:15, a neighbor across the street stepped onto their porch. Angela's voice carried through the night. She was yelling that she'd been set up, that they wanted to destroy her. A crash followed, then another. The men stormed out, one pacing the yard, the other yelling back at her to calm down. Angela came to the doorway, hair wild, waving her arms, shouting that everyone was out to get her. A few minutes later, one of the men shoved something into his pocket, got into a car, and sped off. Angela threw something at the car as it turned the corner. That's when the first 911 call came in. The report mentioned screaming, possible drug activity, and a woman in distress. By 11:50, two patrol cars pulled up with lights flashing. Officers called out to her from the yard, identifying themselves. Angela allegedly screamed at them to leave her property, accusing TLC of sending them. They tried again. No response except more shouting. When they entered through the unlocked front door, the smell hit them first: smoke, spilled alcohol, and something chemical. The living room was torn apart. Angela was pacing, clutching her phone, muttering that no one was going to silence her. Officers told her they were there for a welfare check. She laughed, called them actors, and pushed one when he tried to calm her. The report described her as agitated, incoherent, and unsteady. On the counter, police saw small plastic bags and crushed pills. When asked to identify them, she refused. The cuffs clicked at 12:19 am. She kept shouting as they let her out, claiming she was being framed, that this was the setup. Phones from nearby windows recorded everything. By sunrise, those videos would flood the internet, and Angela Deem's name would trend for all the wrong reasons. By sunrise, the photo was everywhere. Angela Deem's mugshot, puffy face, red eyes, hair tangled, hit social media before the police report was even filed. It spread like wildfire across fan pages, gossip sites, and Reddit threads. The woman once known for her fiery confidence looked lost. Within an hour, hashtags linking her name to drug arrest and TLC firing started trending. Every outlet wanted a piece of it. Memes flooded timelines. Some mocked her downfall, others called it tragic. Longtime fans couldn't believe it had gone this far. Former supporters said they saw it coming. Her arrest divided the fandom overnight. One side called it karma. The other said she needed help, not humiliation. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Clips of her past meltdowns resurfaced with captions like, "The warning signs were there." Inside the county jail, Angela had no idea her face was everywhere. She sat in a holding cell, shaking, still claiming she'd been set up. Officers described her as restless but calm enough to process. Outside, her image had become breaking news. By 9 a.m., TLC's corporate phones were buzzing non-stop. Advertisers demanded answers. Producers tried to distance themselves. Within hours, a short statement went live across the network's platforms. It read, "Angela Deem is no longer associated with any current or future 90-day Fiancé programming. We have no further comment." The message was blunt, cold, and final. Former cast members reacted fast. One wrote, "She bullied everyone. Now the truth caught up." Another said, "I hope she finds peace, but she should never return." Michael stayed silent, but someone close to him told a blog he was done being her storyline. Reporters swarmed her hometown for footage. Neighbors described flashing lights, shouting, and a woman who looked like she'd already lost everything. For years, Angela thrived on attention. But this time, the cameras didn't love her, they were documenting her fall. Hours after her mugshot went viral, Angela finally got her one phone call. The line clicked, and Skyla's tired voice answered. She didn't sound shocked, she'd already seen the photo plastered across every gossip page. Angela rushed into excuses, her words tumbling over each other. She said the police lied. She said TLC had planned it. She said everyone wanted her gone because they were jealous. Skyla listened quietly. No shouting, no arguing. When Angela ran out of breath, there was a long pause. Then Skyla said softly, "Mom, this isn't TLC. This isn't Michael. This is you." The sentence hit harder than any headline. Angela froze. For once, she had nothing to say. The line stayed open for a few seconds before Skyla promised to find a bondsman and hung up. Angela stared at the receiver like it might ring again. It didn't. When she walked out of the jail later that day, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions, she didn't look up. The woman who once chased attention now hid from it, covering her face with trembling hands. Back in the car, she stayed silent as Skyla drove. The roads she used to travel proudly now felt foreign. At home, the damage was everywhere. The porch light flickered. The house smelled of stale smoke. The mirror in the hallway reflected someone she didn't recognize. She sat on the floor, next to a stack of unpaid bills, and the formal letter TLC had sent days earlier confirming her permanent termination. The words, "with cause," jumped off the page. For the first time in years, Angela cried quietly. Not from rage or humiliation, but from realization. The show was gone. The money was gone. The audience she built her world around had moved on. In that silence, the truth finally settled. There was no comeback waiting, no next season, no second chance. Only the echo of her own choices. Angela's story ended where most reality fame stories do, alone, off camera, surrounded by memories that no longer mean what they used to. The same fire that once made her unforgettable burned her world down piece by piece. She mistook attention for love, control for power, and chaos for relevance. For years, it worked. But fame is a short-term contract that always comes with fine print. When you stop performing, it stops protecting you. In a way, Angela was never built for silence. The show gave her structure, cameras gave her purpose, and conflict gave her identity. When all three disappeared, so did her sense of direction. Every warning, every fight, every suspension, every plea from family was a chance to step back. She didn't take any of them. She doubled down, believing the storm kept her famous. It only kept her trapped. TLC moved on quickly. The franchise doesn't mourn its villains, it replaces them. New faces step in. New chaos begins. The brand survives because the formula never changes. Build stars fast, burn them out faster. Angela once played that formula better than anyone, until the machine she fed on swallowed her whole. There's no satisfaction in watching someone break like this. The shouting, the arrests, the mugshots, these aren't entertainment. They're the human cost of a system built on emotional fuel. Angela's story shows what happens when fame stops being a reward and becomes the only way someone knows how to feel alive. For all her flaws, she was never boring. She turned every scene into a headline, every argument into an episode. But in the end, there's no script left to flip, no producers to call, no redemption arc waiting in post-production. Because when the cameras turn off, TLC doesn't write your ending, you do. And in Angela's case, the ending came hard, fast, and final. Stay tuned for my next video, where we'll pull back the curtain on something even more shocking: how TLC profits every time one of their stars falls apart.